First story. My wife cheated on me, and I found out after her abusive ex physically assaulted her, and he was admitted to the ER. The cops told me she is pregnant, so I divorced her. Now, years later, she can't accept my engagement to my fiancé and started harassing me. If ever there was a prize for the most horrible way to learn of your significant other's affair, I would probably win it and be in its hall of fame, like so many people in this sub. I suddenly found myself as a member of a club that nobody ever wants to be part of. I will never forget the sound of my ex-sister-in-law's voice as she kept saying, I'm sorry, over and over on the phone while I drove home from a week-long business trip. I was confused and had absolutely no idea what she meant. But only after I managed to calm her down somewhat did she inform me that my wife was in the hospital and that I needed to hurry home. My mind went into overdrive as I tried to get more information as well as not crash, while I began speeding to get there faster. The only thing she told me is that it was an assault. Then she cut the call and wouldn't answer when I tried to call her again. A bit of background. My ex and I met in our mid-20s. It was through a mutual friend at a barbecue. At first, she seemed almost too good to be true. Not only was she incredibly beautiful, but she was also shy and introverted. It took a while for us to officially date, but once it happened, I was over the moon. When we first tried to get intimate, she suddenly started crying. I should have taken this as a bad sign. I freaked out and thought it was something I did, but she apologized the next day and told me she was triggered. As it turns out, 2 years before meeting me, she was in a long-term relationship with a guy that was abusive both emotionally, physically, and mentally. He would degrade her during their moments of intimacy, then apologize afterward. She had a flashback, but reassured me it had nothing to do with me, so we took things slow as she was still in therapy. It was tough, but because I loved her, I believed once we got over this, it would make our relationship stronger, and for a while it honestly appeared that way. Fast forward another year, and we'd gotten engaged. The first time intimacy also happened during this stage. I was fortunate enough to be able to buy a house for us courtesy of an inheritance from my late uncle. Things were going great, and I half seriously suggested we plant a peach tree important for later on to signify new beginnings, and she was all for it. We were wedded not long after that, and quite frankly, it was absolutely amazing. Of course, we had our normal ups and downs like every married couple, but I considered us more lucky because she always made it a point to never go to bed upset with each other, and she would always point out gently if I did anything to upset her. Sometime later, life basically happened, and I was promoted at my job. It meant more pay, but it also meant I would be traveling more for work conferences and business meetings. I noticed she had been getting down a lot more and wasn't being as intimate as before. She would keep her phone close to her and even stopped gently addressing things that upset her. I tried to talk to her about it, but she assured me that she was fine, and this was a phase she was going through. And having no reason to not trust her, I let it go. She would sometimes go to her sister's place and spend the night, telling me she just needed a bit of girl time with her sister. The day I got that fateful phone call was the day she was meant to be keeping her sister company again. I remember rushing into the hospital, barely breathing, and frantically asking about my wife when the world's most understanding and patient police officer sat me down to explain what happened. He told me he was a friend of my SIL, and he happened to respond to a domestic disturbance call. He arrived on the scene to find a couple fighting. The supposed boyfriend was on top of the female punching her, and she was screaming, trying to scratch him. This didn't make any sense to me because 1. This had nothing to do with my wife because we're married, and 2. Literally everyone who knew my wife knew she wouldn't do that. He gave me a knowing look and placed his hand on my shoulder, and then told me to be very calm because said girlfriend was actually my wife. If it weren't for the severity of the situation, I would have laughed in his face, but something in the way he said everything made me believe him. I then was ushered in by a nurse to see my wife, and what greeted me to this day, I still can hardly find the words to describe. I just stood there for what seemed like an eternity. And then a doctor came in and explained her injuries to me. The jaw was slightly fractured, her left eye was completely swollen shut, and she had massive bruising covering half of her face, as well as 3 broken ribs. Then the doctor dropped another bomb and told me she was pregnant. I still couldn't understand how this happened, and then I caught sight of her sister. She at first tried to avoid me, but at the persuasion of her police officer friend, she told her what she knew. It turns out my wife's ex had gotten in contact with her 5 months ago. He was doing this redemption pyramid step thing where he would apologize to people he had wronged in order to clear his karma. Anyone else's BS meter going crazy right now. They began talking more, and then he convinced her to meet up for coffee and show her he was a changed man. Obviously, old feelings resurfaced, coupled with the fact that he appeared changed now. It soon developed into an emotional affair. My wife approached her sister for advice, who told her to take things slow and just get it out of her system if she needed to, which then led to a physical affair 3 months later. She actually told my wife that she should at least make peace with her ex in whatever form it may be, and even offered to cover for my wife once in a while. My Sil was in tears at this point and kept apologizing to me, saying that she didn't know about the abuse, as my wife never told anyone other than me and her therapist at the time about it. I was numb. I just couldn't feel anything and was absolutely dumbfounded by my wife's actions. When my wife finally woke up, I was there, and she burst into tears upon seeing me. I spent the following months in zombie flight mode. There was individual counseling for her as well as marriage counseling for us at the strong urging of her family. In counseling, she was surprisingly forthcoming about how it happened and how she absolutely hated herself for causing me pain. She mentioned how at one point on her way home from his place, she actually fantasized about driving into the river because she smelled like him and didn't want his scent to corrupt me, however that made sense. She said she then tried to end it, but was too weak, and only after learning that she was pregnant did it actually wake her up and make her realize that any further contact with this man was toxic to not only her, but the unborn child as well. Hence, she went to end things in person for good when he snapped on her. She became a shell of herself and developed a phobia for any other males but me. At one point, she couldn't even use the bathroom at night unless I was holding her hand right. After the baby was born a son, by the way, we got a paternity test, and he was mine. But the more time I spent with her, the more I realized I didn't hate my wife. I actually loathed her. I couldn't see the woman I married, but instead saw his leftovers each time I looked at her. I decided to leave because I was afraid I'd do something I'd regret and be exactly like her abusive ex. She begged me not to leave and even made the ridiculous offer of giving me a hall pass as well as slapping her if I wanted to. I knew at this point I had to get out. She was actually very generous during the divorce. She moved back into her parents and signed a very well thought out co-parenting plan issued by the courts. Moving forward 3 years later, I met my now fiancé by chance. I was in a bookstore with a buddy of mine, and we were discussing Egyptian mythology when this beautiful woman approached me to correct me on my pronunciations of the Egyptian gods and cities. Needless to say, I am immensely impressed by not only her understanding, but also by the fact that she is Egyptian herself. We exchanged numbers, which eventually led us to dating. When I finally proposed to her, it was actually in front of the peach tree I had planted years ago. I got down on one knee, but before I got my answer, she ran into the house and then came out with a ring as well. Turns out she was actually planning on proposing herself because she was madly in love with me, and she just didn't want any other woman to have me. My son, in all his sweet, childlike innocence, told his mother what happened because he was present when it happened. My ex literally showed up that night in the rain, yelling about how I could propose to her, my fiancé, in front of our tree, and that this isn't the end of us. I am completely exhausted at this point. I cannot go and see because she is the mother of my child, but she is basically harassing me and my fiancé. How do I convince her to move on, to get over her fear of men, and not force me to get a restraining order? Sorry it was long, but I am really desperate. Edit. Wanted to ask a question to the insightful women of Reddit. Something that still bugs me to this day is the fact that she even made time for her ex, who took pleasure in destroying her, only for her to suffer a much worse fate. Is it normal for the abused to want the attention of the abuser, even if she might hate him? Something my ex said once. Edit 2. I forgot to add this in the original post. When my fiancé presented me with a ring, which she was going to use to propose to me, she had an engraving on the inner band that states, "To my Pharaoh." Damn, I love this woman. Update. Wow, I didn't expect this type of response. Thank you all so much for your support and kind words, both for me, my fiancé, and my ex. It's sad that my situation with my ex and her abusive past isn't as uncommon as I thought. Reading some of your similar cases really makes one almost lose hope, but I'm glad to see some people have recovered from them. Now for what has happened since my first post. First off, a big thank you to user Mama202045 for your simple yet amazing advice that saved us a lot of trouble. Now on to what has happened so far. Since my last post, my son's birthday was coming up, and he told us he wanted to have a camp night for it. Now I must explain that the boy absolutely loves the outdoors. Everything from camping to hiking to even playing in rivers is his favorite, and obviously, due to the ongoing situation, we cannot go to our usual spots, so I offered my backyard for it. Another request he had was for my ex to sleep over as well. He wanted to imitate a scene from one of his kid adventure shows where both parents are sitting on either side of the child, and all three are roasting marshmallows on the campfire. Now I had absolutely no intention of denying my son's birthday wishes, but at the same time I couldn't have my ex sleep in the same tent as me and my son. That would be far too disrespectful to my fiancé, even though she said she understood. It was clear she wasn't okay with it. My ex seemed to take advantage of this, and kept saying how much she was looking forward to spending the night with her two men, and even went as far as to buy a whole lot of camping equipment that would put Bear Grylls to shame. She was certainly trying to rub it in my fiancé's face, and wasn't graceful about it either. I had to tell her to stop a couple of times, but she only relented when I threatened to invite her sister. Ever since our divorce, my ex has had a burning hatred for her sister. My ex acknowledges her role in the destruction of our marriage, but blames her sister for encouraging the affair and not safeguarding her from making choices that would ruin hers, but more importantly, according to her, our life together. It's gotten so bad that she refuses to let her sister spend any significant amount of time with our son, which at one point caused my ex Sil to have severe depression. My ex Sil has been trying for years to reconcile with her sister, but it just seems to get worse as time goes on. A Redditor, Mama202045, offered me a simple and effective solution. She suggested I go out and purchase a multi-room tent. That way my fiancé could be included. I wasted no time and immediately went out to get one. Of course my ex wasn't too happy about that, but was glad to be under the same roof as me. During the birthday celebration, my son was on cloud 9. He ran around the yard and pretended he was a great explorer discovering a new land. When evening came, I made the fire, and my ex provided the marshmallows. He excitedly sat between us and started roasting his marshmallow alongside us. What I didn't expect was after we were done taking pictures and making his s'mores, he handed my fiancée a stick and a marshmallow as well and sat next to her to make his second s'more. It's honestly a mystery how something this pure and perfect could come out of the absolute mess that was the relationship between me and my ex. My ex asked for a bit of my time, to which I obliged. We stepped into the kitchen, and she apologized for her behavior on the day that I proposed, but not for her actions following that. She told me she still sees me as her husband in her mind, so the thought of me giving my heart to another terrified her. She said she never wanted to cause me pain, and would give anything to go back in time and undo her mistakes. She mentioned how happy she was when the paternity test showed that I was the father because she thought it was a new beginning for us, and that he was proof of our love. I thanked her for the courage to share all this, but told her I was happy with where I was in life and with whom I was with, but hoped she would find someone to make her happy as well. She said she meant what she told me on the day we divorced and will wait for me. I left the kitchen feeling exhausted because none of what I was trying to say got through to her. We decided to call it a night, where my fiancé and I slept in one room of the tent and my ex with my son in another. All in all, a good birthday for my son, but not so good a night for me. That's things so far, and I promise to update if anything major happens. Second story. Entitled Husband Demands OP Not to Attend Her Sister's Wedding, Forcing Her to Babysit Their Kids, and cancels her flight tickets behind OP's back. So she goes in her car, and he and his mom scold OP, calling her a horrible and neglectful mom for abandoning her kids. Now she finds out their previous babysitter's husband was fired, accused of stealing, and is actually quitting after her husband hit on her. Here's the situation. My husband 36, and I 30 have 3 kids too, 4, 7. I'm a psalm full-time, and I take care of the kids while my husband works full-time. My sister's wedding was last week. We live hours away, which is an issue for my husband. When we first got the invite, he told me that he wasn't going, that he would stay for the kids, and suggested I do the same. Since the wedding doesn't allow kids and my husband doesn't want to hire a babysitter after the one we had robbed us. We had gone back and forth on this. But I insisted on going since that's my only sister, and I want to attend what might be a once-in-a-lifetime event for her. He chuckled at my statement. Then we stopped talking about it. As the wedding was approaching, he brought it up and told me to miss it and stay with the kids. I suggested that since no babysitters were allowed then, I could get my friend to stay with the kids, but he refused. I ignored him, spoke to my friend, who agreed to watch the kids, and booked a ticket to travel to my sister's town in time. My husband found out and went on about how he had work, and that the most logical solution is that I stay home with the kids and let him make his living. I told him that I already took care of the kids, and they'll stay with my friend. Honestly, I grew impatient. The day of my flight, I dropped the kids off at my friend's place, and then headed to the airport. I found out he had canceled my plane ticket. I was upset but still insisted on going, so I went home and got into my car and drove 4 hours to get to the town. At 5 p.m., my husband called and was freaking out on me, asking where I was. I told him I made it to my sister's town, and he blew up, saying I wasn't supposed to go. He even said he canceled my ticket to get me to stay. He demanded I return, but I said not until the wedding was over. He called me a horrible, neglectful mom, then had his mom scold me and accuse me of abandoning my own kids. There was a huge argument that ensued when I returned home, and my husband kept on saying I was horrible to leave the kids and to ignore him like that and do what I wanted eventually. He's giving me the silent treatment as of now, and I can no longer take it. I felt guilty and did not enjoy the wedding at all. Was I wrong for still going? Info: my husband dislikes my sister, if it's relevant. Update. So a lot of people on here brought up the possibility of my husband lying about the robbery that happened months ago and accusing the babysitter of stealing just so I can't hire any other babysitters. He was the one who discovered the robbery. I never saw or talked to her after he kicked her out. Upon reading the comments, I'm now suspecting that he made this whole thing up. I'm going to contact the babysitter to get the whole story from. Hopefully I'm wrong, but I will talk to her and see if her story contradicts his in any way. I'll keep you updated. Relevant comments. Commenter: NTA. He's awful. It's ridiculous to suggest you missed the wedding, as there were obviously childcare solutions, and to cancel the ticket is super abusive. I can't see how this doesn't cause massive damage to your relationship. He's ridiculously controlling. OP. The thing is, I had already suggested other solutions, but he was dead set on not letting me come. I ignored him because I was at my wit's end, and he wouldn't want it any other way. Commenter: horrible, neglectful mom. From the man that did everything he could to not have to parent his own kids for a weekend. Your relationship is not healthy. He is manipulating and controlling. Hopefully, the comments here open your eyes. NTA. OP. Anger is how I felt when I heard him say it. Not a new thing, though, because he has called me names before. But to say that I'm a neglectful mom, that stings hard. Commenter: financial abuse. Yup. Isolating you from loved ones? Yup. Controlling behavior? Yup. NTA. And please leave the he should be required to give you child support and alimony. You are not neglectful. Your kids were taken care of. OP. Thank you so much. The childcare arrangement issue has been making my life 10x harder. After that babysitter robbed us, my husband decided that no babysitter is allowed into our home anymore. I disagreed because of how illogical his decision was, and now look at how much we're struggling. I'm struggling actually without outside help. Thank God for my friend. She's like a sister to me. Commenter: your NTA either way, but info. Why did he have his mom berate you after he was done? You know your NTA. He's obviously a control freak. And the way you said he wants to earn his money. His money, like it's not yours, screams financial abuse. I'm honestly feeling like this is fake. But to give you the benefit of the doubt, you really need to think hard about this situation and realize that he's setting you up so you can never leave. And since you left, if you go back home after this, he's going to make it harder for you to leave again. OP. He does it all the time. I was blamed by her when the previous babysitter robbed our house. I got called names by her and my husband too. It happened 7 months ago, but it still hurts like hell. Commenter: info. Do you have evidence the babysitter robbed you apart from the missing items and your husband's testimony? It sounds like he is trying to isolate and control you. It is completely unreasonable to expect your wife to skip her only sister's wedding. OP. No. I wasn't home when it happened. It was after the babysitter left that my husband discovered the robbery. We never found the stuff, but my husband said it was her because who else could it be? And then kicked her out even though I was the one who hired her. He told me he was the one paying her, so I shouldn't protest. That's it. It happened months ago. Update. I contacted the babysitter via social media. I sent her a DM telling her who I was and mentioning the incident that happened at our home. I didn't think she'd respond, given that it's been over 7 months since she left us. But I was surprised when she responded in 2 hours' time. I again mentioned the incident to her and asked if she could explain to me what happened. She sent me a long wall of text swearing she never took anything from our home and that my husband came home and was lashing out at her and the kids for no reason. She said that they didn't talk to him that day, but then brought up a previous interaction they both had. Then she claimed that he touched her inappropriately while he was in the kitchen with her. This caught me off guard. I asked her to expand on that, and she said she wasn't sure if it was an accident or that he did it deliberately. She said he didn't say anything, but his looks made her uncomfortable. She also said she was willing to let it go till she saw that he started leaving her text days later demanding she respond to him. Then the day he accused her of the robbery, he just lashed out at her, criticizing her work, and then told her to leave and not come back. She said he didn't accuse her of anything being stolen, just lashed out and told her to leave. I couldn't wrap my head around this. I don't know what to say. Basically, she was saying he tried to hit on her. But then she said she wasn't sure it was an accident. Then he just all of a sudden came home one day and lashed out, and then told her to leave. I can't make sense of this. I went to try to speak to him on that, but he kept blocking my attempts to discuss it. So I blew up, showed him what the babysitter sent me, and he remained calm, which is completely out of character for him. He kept repeating the line, "She's lying to you," while I absolutely lost it on him. I threatened to take the kids and go stay with my friend, which is what I'm going to do today after he leaves the house. Since he said that I can't do that, then I'm waiting till he's out. He kept calling me crazy to believe some kid's story over his, and insisted that I was looking to dig up dirt to start a fight. I refused to continue fighting. I just kept my distance from him. This is just horrible. I did not see this coming, and I feel like a cold wave just hit me, and I don't know what to say about this. And worst of all is that I have no evidence or proof. I'm going to be taking some space from him for now until I clear my mind and think of what I'm going to do going forward. Relevant comments. Commenter. Take the kids. If you have messages, screenshot everything. Screenshot what the babysitter told you. Screenshot you buying the ticket, and then he canceling it. If his mother thrashed you via DMs, screenshot that too. Don't yield on this. The first step of everything is realizing something is not good. You already reached out that step. Your family will help you. Your friends will help you. Don't yield, don't give up, and good luck. OP, yes. I'm too overwhelmed right now, but I'll make sure to store those messages. I already keep all his messages, including his mom's verbal attacks toward me. It's awful the way he and his mom treat me, in front of the kids no less. I'm at the end of my rope, and I feel suffocated, and my chest feels tight and heavy. I will need to get fresh air later on and away from the kids just so I can get my thoughts in order. Commenter. Deleted. OP. I fully believe, and I'm now convinced that the reason he canceled the plane ticket and went ballistic when I attended the wedding is because he hates my sister. He calls her ASLT on the regular and yells at me about how she sleeps around, which is none of his freaking business. I'm just so mad at myself for letting him get this far in humiliating me and badmouthing my family while I stood there and took it. I was an idiot. Commenter. I wouldn't be shocked if he hides your keys or otherwise makes your car inoperable so you can't go anywhere. If that happens, phone a friend. Call a cab ride share, and I will personally Venmo you money to get away. When you leave, take important documents, birth certificates, social security cards, etc. with you. Hide them. Does he know where your friend lives? If so, try to find another friend that he doesn't know. His calmness is terrifying. Calm before the storm. If anything even begins to escalate, call the police for an escort. OP. Does he know where your friend lives? If so, try to find another friend that he doesn't know. He does. And I'm worried he will come to her house, where the kids and I will be staying after he finds the house empty. Honestly, I'm not sure how I'll act if I see him there. I might just lose my temper. Commenter. Do you have any family members or friends you can call to be with you when you take the kids? Just in case he stops remaining calm. OP. No. I'm waiting till he's out. Then I will leave with the kids. I had done it before. He couldn't do anything about it, but make empty threats. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.